My boyfriend slept with my estranged father's stepson just to humiliate me. Then he started planning our future around my trust fund. He never knew it was fake until I said, "Pack carefully. You're not coming with me." For clarity, I'm a bisexual man, and my boyfriend was bisexual too. We were two men in what I believed was my first serious relationship. When I met Blake, I was 18 and he was 20. At first, being with him felt easy. He remembered what I ordered at coffee shops. He knew which songs I always skipped. If I had a bad day, he could make me laugh without forcing me to explain what was wrong. Sometimes he would wait for me just so we could spend another hour together. I had never felt that chosen before. That mattered because my biological father, Gregory, had spent most of my childhood teaching me how easily someone could leave. He cheated on my mother repeatedly before building a new life with another woman. She already had a son named Nolan. People referred to Nolan as my stepbrother, but we had never lived together. We did not grow up as family. We barely knew each other. After leaving, my father still made occasional promises about seeing me. He would arrange plans, cancel them, apologize, and promise to do better. Then, when I was around 14, he stopped trying. There was no final argument or dramatic goodbye. He simply became harder to reach until I understood that he had chosen his new family, and no longer felt obligated to pretend otherwise. I told Blake about that because I trusted him. In the beginning, he treated that information carefully. Later, he used it to hurt me in a way no stranger ever could. The change in him did not happen all at once. By the time the relationship ended, we had been together for nearly a year, but the warning signs had started only a few months in. He began checking his phone constantly whenever we were together. Sometimes a message would appear and his whole expression would soften. Then, if I glanced toward the screen, he would lock it or turn it face down. One evening, we were sitting across from each other in a coffee shop when his phone buzzed for the fourth time in 10 minutes. "Who keeps messaging you?" I asked. He did not look up. "People." "What people?" That made him raise his eyes. "Do I need to submit a list?" I laughed because I assumed he was joking. He stared at me until I stopped. Soon after that, he became uncomfortable with affection in public. He used to take my hand without thinking. Then he started pulling away whenever someone walked past us. One afternoon, I touched his arm outside a store and he stepped aside as though I had embarrassed him. "What was that?" I asked. "What was what?" "You moved away from me. We're standing in the middle of the sidewalk. We're beside a wall." He sighed. "Why do you always need reassurance?" The question stayed with me because I did need reassurance. He knew why. Instead of asking why he was treating me differently, I started monitoring myself. I stopped reaching for his hand first. I tried not to ask who was messaging him. I pretended not to notice how often he disappeared or canceled plans. I thought that if I became easier to be around, he might become kind again. Instead, he became crueler. There had once been teasing between us that felt harmless because we both understood the limits. Then Blake started crossing those limits on purpose. He criticized my appearance. He compared me to other people. He brought up mistakes I had made before meeting him and used them as proof that I should be grateful he stayed. Whenever I told him he had gone too far, my reaction became the new problem. "You know I'm joking," he would say. "That didn't sound like a joke. Everything becomes a crisis with you." The first few times he made me cry, he apologized. He would pull me close and promise he had not meant what he said. Eventually, the apologies stopped. One night, during an argument, he told me no one else would ever put up with me. I went quiet. Blake picked up his phone and started scrolling. "That hurt," I said. He kept looking at the screen. "Blake. What? You said no one else would want me." "I said no one else would deal with this." "With what?" He finally looked at me. "This. You turning every sentence into a courtroom." I remember sitting there, trying to understand how I had become the guilty person in a conversation where he had just told me I was unlovable. Deep down, I knew he was cheating. I could feel it whenever his phone lit up and his mood suddenly changed. He could be impatient with me for hours, then smile warmly at one message from someone else. I did not have proof. The proof eventually contacted me. I was lying in bed one night when I received a message from a man named Felix. We had no mutual friends, and at first I thought it might be spam. His first message said, "I'm sorry to contact you like this, but are you dating Blake?" I stared at the screen before answering. "Yes." "Why?" The typing bubble appeared, vanished, then returned. Felix explained that he had been seeing Blake for several weeks. Blake had told him he was single. Felix only discovered me after finding an older photograph on one of Blake's accounts. I ended it as soon as I found out. He wrote, I swear I didn't know about you. Then he sent screenshots. There was Blake telling him he had not been in a serious relationship for months. There was Blake arranging to meet him on nights he had told me he was busy. There was Blake complaining that his clingy ex kept contacting him. The clingy ex was me. I felt humiliated, but I was not surprised. By then, the truth had been arriving in pieces for months. The hidden phone. The unexplained absences. The sudden contempt. Felix kept apologizing. I told him it was not his fault. He had been lied to as well. We talked for hours that night and again the next day. Felix had met the charming version of Blake. The attentive version who listened carefully and made someone feel important. I had met that version too. I also knew what happened after Blake decided he no longer needed to impress someone. Talking to Felix forced me to hear my excuses out loud. He's been under pressure, I said. Felix replied. Pressure doesn't make someone invent a second life. He can be sweet. So can most people when they want something. He says I make him feel trapped. You're not trapping him. He's choosing to lie. I wish I could say I saw the screenshots, ended the relationship, and never looked back. That would have been cleaner. It would also have been dishonest. By then, Blake had worn down my confidence so thoroughly that even clear evidence did not feel like permission to trust myself. I confronted him the following evening. He denied everything until I mentioned Felix's name. Then his expression changed. It didn't mean anything, he said. You told him you were single. I knew you'd react like this. You lied to both of us. We haven't been good for months, Adrian. He said it as if our relationship had quietly expired and he had simply forgotten to notify me. I told him we were finished. For 2 days, Blake apologized constantly. He arrived with food. He sent long messages. He claimed he had been confused and terrified of losing me. He also contacted relatives who thought we were a happy couple. He told them we had argued because he had made one stupid mistake. They called me and encouraged me to forgive him. They did not know what had really happened, and I was too ashamed to explain. Blake used that silence well. He cried. He promised to change. He said Felix had misunderstood the situation. Then he told me that I was throwing away the only person who truly knew me. None of his explanations made sense, but they did not need to. They only needed to keep me uncertain. I took him back. For a while, we acted as though we were repairing the relationship. Blake started staying overnight at my mother's house again, just as he had before the breakup. He behaved well for less than 2 weeks. Then the insults returned. So did the secret messages. I continued talking to Felix. He never ordered me to leave, but he stopped allowing me to pretend Blake's behavior was normal. The final betrayal happened after another argument. Blake had disappeared the previous night, and refused to tell me where he had been. When I asked again, he accused me of trying to control him. I'm asking where my boyfriend was, I said. And I'm telling you it's none of your business. That makes no sense. Maybe this is why your father stopped calling. The room went silent. Blake watched my face. He knew exactly what he had done. What did you say? He shrugged. Maybe he got tired of dealing with you too. I told him to leave my mother's house. He walked out laughing, as though he had won something. 3 days later, Blake sent me a message. You should check your stepbrother's page. At first, I did not understand. Then I remembered Nolan. Nolan's profile was public. My father appeared in photographs with him and Nolan's mother, making him easy to find. Blake had searched through my father's account, located Nolan, and contacted him. I opened Nolan's page. The first thing I saw was a photograph of him sitting beside Blake at a bar. The caption was vague. The comments were not. One person had written, "This is brutal." Another said, "I hope your stepbrother sees this." My hands started shaking before I called Blake. He answered on the second ring. "What did you do?" There was a pause. Then he laughed softly. "You saw it? You went looking for Nolan?" He responded. "That isn't my fault. You contacted him because you knew it would hurt me." Blake sounded pleased with himself. "You keep acting like you're the only person allowed to have feelings. What does that even mean?" "It means maybe now you understand what it feels like when someone doesn't choose you." He had taken the most painful thing I had ever told him and rebuilt it as a weapon. The next morning, Nolan posted again. This time, he made it clear that he and Blake had slept together. People I did not know began sending me messages. Some mocked me. Others said I deserved what had happened. One person wrote that my father's family had rejected me because they could see what Blake had finally discovered. I knew those people did not know me. But cruelty becomes difficult to dismiss when it repeats something you already fear about yourself. I turned my phone face down and sat on my bedroom floor. My mother, Valerie, knocked gently. Adrian? I'm fine. You don't sound fine. I just need a minute. She remained outside the door. I'm making tea, she said eventually. I'll leave yours outside. She did not force me to explain. Felix called that evening. I answered but could not speak. He waited. Finally I said, Blake found Nolan. Why? To prove he could. Felix was quiet for a moment. That wasn't just cheating, he said. He wanted to punish you. I started crying because he had named it correctly. Blake had not simply wanted someone else. He wanted me to watch him enter the family that had excluded me and be welcomed more easily than I ever had been. Felix asked me one question. Do you want to keep surviving him, or do you want to be done? I stared at the wall for a long time. Then I said, I want him out of my life. The problem was that I had already tried to leave. Blake knew how to apologize just enough. He knew which relatives to contact and how to turn his betrayal into my overreaction. I needed an ending he could not talk me out of. That was when Felix and I started discussing the trust fund. The trust fund did not exist. My father had invented it years earlier while arguing with my mother over money. He liked telling relatives that he had placed money aside for me. According to him, there would be enough to help me move out when I turned 19. My mother knew it was nonsense. My father had argued over ordinary expenses and repeatedly tried to reduce what he contributed. He was not secretly building a future for me. Blake had heard the rumor from one of my relatives. I had corrected him repeatedly. There isn't a trust fund, I told him once. How do you know? Because my father lies. He earns decent money. That doesn't mean he saved any of it for me. Blake had even searched online for estimates of what someone in my father's line of work might earn. He had convinced himself the money existed. I thought his interest was curiosity. Now I understood he had been calculating. Felix remembered the rumor because I had complained about Blake's questions. What does he think happens when you turn 19? He asked. He thinks I get access to the money. And your birthday is coming up. In a few weeks. There was a brief silence. Then Felix said, What happens if you stop correcting him? I understood immediately. The idea made me uncomfortable, not because Blake deserved honesty, but because deception felt too much like his language. Felix did not pressure me. You don't have to do anything, he said. But if he thinks he's about to benefit from that money, he might finally show you what he actually wants. Blake had already shown me. I just had not accepted it. A few days later, I asked him to meet me at a diner. He arrived late and kissed my cheek as though nothing had happened with Nolan. I almost walked out. Instead, I waited until we had ordered. I found out more about the trust, I said. Blake's posture changed immediately. The trust fund? I nodded. What did you find out? That the money should become available after my birthday. His eyes brightened. How much? I still don't know exactly. Enough for an apartment? Probably. For the first time in months, he reached across the table and held my hand with something that looked like tenderness. Adrian, this could be our fresh start. For one dangerous second, I wanted to believe him. Then he asked, Do you think there'll be enough left for a car? The doubt disappeared. Blake began talking about neighborhoods, furniture, and expensive apartments. He spoke as though the money were already his. You still want to live with me? I asked. Of course. After everything that happened? He squeezed my hand. That's why we need a new beginning. He did not apologize for Felix. He did not apologize for Nolan. He only discussed what the trust fund could buy. That evening I called Felix. I told him. How did he react? He asked whether I could buy him a car. Felix sighed. There he is. Blake changed almost overnight. He started sending good morning messages again. He became affectionate in public and stopped insulting me openly. I had spent months asking for basic respect. Imaginary money accomplished it in a day. We viewed several apartments together. Blake preferred the most expensive ones. At one viewing, he walked into the second bedroom and looked around. This can be my gaming room. Then where would I keep my things? The living room? He said it casually, as though it had never occurred to him that I might want space in the home I was supposedly paying for. He asked very few questions about applications, deposits, or whose name would be on the lease. He told me I was better with paperwork and should handle everything. I claimed that one application looked promising but could not be finalized until after my birthday, when I would supposedly have proof of funds. There was no approval and no signed lease. I told Blake that if everything went smoothly, we would move the following weekend. He believed me because he wanted to. While he planned the life he expected me to finance, I began building a different one. My friend Tessa had been considering moving out for months. I finally told her the full story. Not the softened version. Everything. She listened without interrupting. When I finished, she stared at me. "You're not moving in with him." "I know." "No. Say it like you believe it." "I'm not moving in with Blake." "Good," she said. "You're moving in with me." Tessa and I found a modest 2-bedroom apartment. The carpet was worn near the windows. The kitchen was narrow. One cabinet door sat slightly crooked. I loved it. It did not look like Blake's fantasy. It looked like freedom. I saved everything I could, and Tessa and I split the deposit. My mother gave us an old table and several boxes of kitchen supplies. I told her enough of the truth that she understood why the move needed to stay secret. She did not tell me to forgive Blake. She only asked, "What do you need?" Blake rented a room in a shared house. After I assured him that the apartment application was practically settled and that we would move the weekend after my birthday, he gave notice. He did not ask to see the application. He did not ask whether his name would be on the lease. He assumed I would handle everything because he believed I would pay for everything. His landlord found someone else to take the room. By the time Blake learned the truth, reversing that decision was no longer simple. Tessa and I moved into our apartment 8 days before the date Blake expected us to move together. Her older brother, Owen, helped us carry the heavier boxes. By evening, my clothes, important documents, and anything valuable were out of my mother's house. I left a few ordinary items behind so Blake would not immediately notice. Some of Blake's belongings were still there from the nights he had stayed over. I packed them into a box but did not return them yet. If the box appeared at his parents' house too soon, he might realize something was wrong. The next part of the plan involved his mother, Monica. Monica had always been kind to me. She had corrected Blake on the few occasions when he became harsh in front of her, but she had never seen the worst of him. Blake knew how to become charming around his parents. I contacted Monica and sent her several screenshots. They showed him admitting to cheating, insulting me, and discussing the trust fund as though it belonged to him. I avoided anything intimate. Monica called almost immediately. "Why didn't you tell me?" I was ashamed. "You have nothing to be ashamed of." I kept thinking he would change. She became quiet. "What are you planning?" "I'm ending it tomorrow." "Do you need me to come there?" "No. My mother will be at work, and I'll be gone before Blake realizes." "What do you need from me?" "I need you not to answer his messages right away." She hesitated. "What messages?" I explained the phone plan. Monica did not sound comfortable with it. Neither was I. But after reading Blake's messages, she agreed because she needed to see how he spoke when he believed no one else was listening. The following afternoon, Blake came to my mother's house. Because we were supposedly repairing the relationship, it was normal for him to stay there while waiting for me to finish work. My mother had already left. Blake took a shower and left his phone on the bed. By then, he had become careless. He even bragged about messaging other people because he believed I would never leave permanently. I knew his passcode because he had never changed it. I deleted my real contact entry and removed our existing message thread. I cleared my number from his recent calls. Then I changed Monica's contact name to Adrian, replaced her contact photograph with mine, and removed their visible conversation. Finally, I opened a fresh message to the renamed contact and left it at the top of his screen. If Blake tapped the newest conversation or searched my name, his messages would go to his mother. The trick depended on him being angry enough not to check the number. Blake rarely checked anything once he was angry. Before leaving, I went into the kitchen. He had left dirty dishes, wrappers, and takeout containers across the counter. I took one inexpensive plate, cracked it in the sink, and placed it beside the mess. I had already bought my mother a replacement. Then I left a note. "I'm done cleaning up after you. Deal with this before you leave." I was not accusing him of breaking the plate. I only needed him to believe I had finally stopped serving him. Then I left for work. My mother was safely away. I was already across town when Blake came out of the shower. At 2:17, Monica sent me the first screenshot. Blake had written, "What is wrong with you?" Another message followed. "You leave a mess, break things, and expect me to deal with it?" Then, You should be grateful I'm still willing to move in with you. The messages became uglier. He mocked my relationship with my father. He called me weak. Then he wrote, "The only useful thing you've ever brought into my life is money you didn't even earn." That was when Monica called him. Because I had renamed her contact, Blake answered expecting to hear my voice. Instead, he heard his mother. According to Monica, neither of them spoke for several seconds. Then she asked, "Do you know who you've been messaging?" Blake hung up. She called again. This time, he answered angrily. Monica read his own messages back to him. He tried to claim they were jokes. She asked why he had said I was only useful because of money. He told her she did not understand our relationship. Then she mentioned the screenshots I had sent. Blake became furious. He accused me of manipulating her. Monica asked whether he had cheated with Felix. He avoided the question. She asked why he had contacted Nolan. He said it was none of her business. Finally, Blake said, "Your opinion doesn't matter. Adrian and I are moving next weekend." Monica answered, "Are you sure about that?" A few minutes later, Blake realized he could not find my real number. He called me through social media. I was in the break room at work when my phone began vibrating. I watched his name until the call stopped. Then it started again. I answered. "You went through my phone." There was no greeting. Only anger. "Yes. You sent my mother our private messages. I sent her your words. You had no right. You slept with my stepbrother and helped turn it into a public joke. That has nothing to do with this. It has everything to do with this." His voice rose. "You're completely unstable. Do you understand that? You're lucky I'm still willing to move in with you." I almost laughed. "Move in where?" There was a pause. "The apartment." "What apartment?" "The one you've been arranging." "I arranged an apartment." "Exactly." "For Tessa and me." The silence on the other end felt enormous. Then Blake said very slowly, "What did you just say?" "I moved in with Tessa yesterday." "You're lying." "My keys are in my pocket." "What about the trust fund?" "There is no trust fund." He started talking over me, but I continued. "I told you repeatedly that it wasn't real. You decided my father had secretly saved money because that was the future you wanted. You said it was being released. I said what you needed to hear so you would stop pretending. You tricked me." "Yes. We viewed apartments. You viewed things you wanted me to buy. I gave notice on my room because you said everything was confirmed. I said the application was pending. You never asked to see it. He already rented the room to someone else. That was your decision. You ruined my life." "No. I stopped letting you build it on top of mine." He began insulting me. The words came quickly, but they no longer carried the same weight. When he finally stopped to breathe, I said, "Your belongings are packed. Owen will deliver them to your parents' house. You're going to regret this. Maybe. You'll come crawling back." "No. You think Tessa is going to put up with you?" For once, I did not defend myself. I did not explain. I said, "Pack carefully. You're not coming with me." Then I ended the call and blocked him everywhere. My hands shook afterward. Leaving did not feel victorious in that moment. It felt like grief and relief occupying the same space. I sat on the floor until I could breathe normally. Tessa picked me up after work. When I climbed into her car, she studied my face. "Is it done?" I nodded. "Completely?" I blocked him. She squeezed my hand. "Then let's go home." Home. It was the first time anyone had called the apartment that. I cried during most of the drive. Owen delivered Blake's belongings to Monica and Dennis that evening. Because Blake no longer had his rented room, his parents allowed him to stay with them temporarily. They did not immediately throw him out. Monica wanted to believe he might accept responsibility once he calmed down. Dennis, his father, had usually stayed out of Blake's relationships, but he read the messages and confronted him. Blake blamed me for everything. He claimed I had manipulated the screenshots. He said Felix had been obsessed with him and insisted Nolan had contacted him first, even though the messages proved otherwise. He argued that the fake trust fund was worse than anything he had done. The conflict continued for weeks. Monica later told me that Blake became especially angry whenever she refused to call me unstable. He accused his parents of choosing me over him. They told him they were not choosing anyone. They were reacting to his behavior. Eventually, another argument ended with Blake insulting Monica and damaging something in the house. That became the final line for Dennis. They gave Blake a deadline to leave. He stayed with friends for a while. Some contacted me after discovering why he suddenly needed a place. I showed them the same non-intimate screenshots and allowed them to make their own decisions. Some continued helping him. Others stopped. Felix and I also contacted several people Blake had been seeing. We did it privately. We did not post his information publicly or encourage anyone to attack him. We only explained that Blake had maintained overlapping relationships and provided enough proof for them to protect themselves. A few ignored us. 2 thanked us. One person admitted Blake had already begun criticizing his appearance and discouraging him from spending time with friends. He ended the relationship before it became more serious. That mattered more to me than humiliating Blake ever could. Nolan eventually deleted his posts. Once people understood that Blake had deliberately targeted my relationship with my father, the situation stopped being entertaining for some of Nolan's friends. Nolan never apologized. My father sent me one message. He said I had caused unnecessary drama for his household. I replied that Blake had contacted Nolan, Nolan had posted about it publicly, and neither decision belonged to me. My father did not respond. I blocked him too. For the first few months after moving, I expected Blake to appear everywhere. Whenever a car slowed near the apartment, I looked through the blinds. Every unknown number made my chest tighten. He never came. Maybe Monica warned him not to. Maybe he understood that the version of me who always took him back no longer existed. Life with Tessa was not glamorous. Our furniture did not match. The heater made a clicking sound at night. For several weeks, our dining table was a folding table with one uneven leg. It was still the safest home I had ever known. Felix remained my friend. We never became romantic, although people sometimes assume that when they hear the story. He had been deceived by Blake too. Our friendship came from recognizing the same manipulation from different sides. Over time, I became more careful about who I trusted without allowing Blake to make me afraid of everyone. Monica still contacted me occasionally, usually on my birthday or around the holidays. She once told me that her relationship with Blake had improved slightly after he moved out and began facing the consequences of his choices. I do not know how much he changed. Years later, one of Blake's newer accounts appeared in my suggested contacts. His face was older. For a moment, I remembered the version of him I had spent nearly a year waiting to see again. Then I looked around my home. There were no hidden phones, cruel messages, or imaginary money holding anything together. I blocked the account. Some people believe the fake trust fund and the phone trick made me manipulative too. They say I should have simply ended the relationship and walked away. Maybe leaving immediately would have been healthier. But I had tried to leave, and Blake had repeatedly pulled me back by involving relatives, rewriting what happened, and convincing me that I could not survive without him. The plan gave me a clean break and showed his parents how he spoke when he believed no one else was listening. I am not proud that I lied. I am proud that I finally left. So was I wrong to trick my boyfriend with a future that never existed, or did he destroy himself the moment he decided my pain was something he could use?